The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. And welcome to the show. Good to have you right here. It is Ambitious Radio, hosted by our friend Doug Parker, talking about entrepreneurship and leadership while interviewing interesting people and what makes them ambitious. Now, you know the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system. You know, most of the time, small business owners need to personally guarantee any loans that their companies take out. That can be kind of tough to do if you have credit issues. So if you have less than perfect credit, go to repairmycreditnow.com for a free credit report evaluation. repairmycreditnow.com. Doug, what do we have going on today?
Today, we're going to be talking to Stephen Christopher. Stephen is the founder of Seequs Digital Marketing, a web marketing firm designed to help business owners achieve results they never thought possible. Before starting Seequs, Stephen had run many businesses, including a mortgage company that he started in 2004. But with the crash of 2008, he learned what it was like to go from profitable to over $100,000 in debt overnight. From this failure, he learned more about business than any school or program could ever teach. Since then, he's become an avid student of personal and business development, and his number one focus is helping businesses thrive. The primary platform that Stephen uses to add extreme value to business is an online strategy and service that his agency Seequs provides. All right, Stephen, welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Doug. I'm doing great today.
Cool, man. Well, hey, tell me what I missed in the intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself personally, kind of where you're from, what's your background, and how did you get where you are?
Yeah, so I'm kind of originally from right down the street from you. I grew up in Pensacola, Florida. A lot of my family is from Alabama. My dad was born in Corpus Christi. So, you know, from the South and absolutely love the South. I grew up with two parents that worked full-time jobs that they were under this mentality of, you know, you get good grades in school, you get into a good college, you get good grades there, you go out, you get a good job, you work until you retire, and then you go do the fun stuff that you've always wanted to do and dreamed of doing. So kind of that the non-entrepreneurial way to grow up is really what I grew up with.
So let me ask you this. You grew up in that environment, and it was the traditional, probably you go get a job, you work for 40 years for somebody, you retire, and that was kind of their mentality. It wasn't the entrepreneurial role, you said. So how was it, that you got into the entrepreneurial world? I mean, did you go to school? Did you get out of high school and work? What was that like?
Yeah, so when I was about 14 years old, I started my first business. I started a mobile car detailing business. And I learned about that time I was halfway decent at sales because I was 14. I couldn't drive, so I couldn't actually go to anybody's house. So I had to convince people to drive to my house so that I could mobile car detail their automobile. And so that was kind of my first entrepreneurial thing that I started. But that led me up to college. And when I was getting ready to go to college, my parents kind of said, okay, cool, you had fun with your little business. Now it's time for like the real world. They kind of thought of it as like this play toy up until, they thought of it as a play toy, like entrepreneur wasn't a real job. And when I went to college, graduated, worked for a big financial firm, and quickly realized that wasn't for me. I would start to get these headaches like every day when I'd go to work. I'd have headaches during work and then headaches after work, and just knew that something was off. It was just incongruent with what I knew I should be doing. And I saw so much opportunity within this company to improve its processes and its systems and the value that it adds. But it was such a big corporation, I couldn't really make any difference there. And that's really why I couldn't stand it. I hated it. And so I quit. And I moved to the Caribbean for a year.
So let's talk about that for a second, because, there's a lot of people that they feel like they're sick and tired of their job or their boss or the 9-to-5 grind or whatever. Walk us through that time, because frankly, not everybody has the ability just to check out and go to the Caribbean. Now, you may or may not have had that luxury either. You might have just done it. But can you talk through what the thought process was and then actually going and doing that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just I knew that the pain of staying there got greater than the fear and the potential pain of the unknown. And so that was my decision point. That was when I finally said, I don't care what happens, but I'm not staying here anymore because this is way too painful. I moved to the Caribbean with nothing. I had no job. I had a couple $1,000s that I had saved up, but that was it. So I just knew that, well, really, like I said, the pain was so great to stay there that it overcame the potential fear of the unknown of what I was going to do next exactly. I didn't even really know what I was going to do. I just knew that wasn't right for me.
That's I have a similar circumstance. When I went from being a 9-to-5 top employee to leaving, and it was like on a Saturday afternoon, and one day I was like, I am done. And I get home, and my wife's like, what are you doing home? You're normally working now. I said, I think I just kind of quit. She goes, what? And, freak out mode. And mine was probably a little different than yours. I had 2 kids, a wife, and so I had to have some stability. But sometimes it can work out if you've got that intrinsic motivation and you kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit. You talked about at 14. You kind of already had some of that. You're a pretty good salesperson. But one thing I always encourage people to do is a lot of people have the dream of being an entrepreneur. However, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in this segment and the next, about how you do those things, how you gain momentum, and how you transition through those things. But some people need a 9-to-5 job. They need the structure, because if you don't have a boss guiding you and telling you what to do, some people, they just don't have the skill set or the discipline to operate. So, when you listen to this show, guys, just because there's a couple of folks that get on here that are entrepreneurs and jumped out there and made it happen, I always caution, be careful. Don't just jump out there just because you want to. Make sure you've got the true enough desire. And I think that that pain of staying, you said, was a lot more painful than the fear of the unknown. You just got to make sure that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make those things happen. So now, what island did you go to in the Caribbean?
I lived in St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
U.S. Virgin Islands.
Okay, so you can go down to so it's a U.S. Virgin Island, so it's still a U.S. territory. You can go down there. You no passport or anything. You just kind of go down there and cruise, and everything's good?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a giant rock in the middle of the ocean that's 7 miles across and 14 miles long.
Really? I didn't know it was that small.
Yeah, it's not very big, and really only about half of the island is heavily inhabited. Okay. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot of people on it. There's not a whole lot of room to hide either. So I quickly learned what it's like to be kind of from a small town. Mm-hmm. Just happens to be a small town in the middle of the ocean.
So what was it that you did down there? Were you able to get a job and make some things happen? And how long was it again that you stayed?
Yeah, so I stayed there for a year. I went down with nothing, and I got a job just working on a boat for the first couple months. And where the house that I was renting was owned by the president of a distributor that distributed all kinds of like high-end wines, liquor, restaurant supplies, dog food, batteries, all this other stuff. And I just kind of kept bugging him. It sounded like a really great place to work. I knew I could make an impact on it. And every time I saw him, I would just kind of beg him for a job. And eventually I think I wore him down and he hired me. So I was a high-end wine liquor distributor to a lot of the restaurants on the island.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit more about just some different things, because it sounds like you've been kind of like around the world a little bit. What's one of the things in the past maybe 5 to 10 years that maybe you've changed your mind on? Maybe you thought one way, and with a little additional information, you've kind of made a new decision. Anything that you can think of that you've kind of just changed 180 degrees on?
Yeah, I actually have a great one, and this is relatively new. So when I started my first company, when I started the mortgage company and then my first digital marketing agency, my goal was always revenue based, and it was always, how do we grow massively more from a revenue standpoint. So, we'd set out these goals like, okay, this year's we want 6 million and 10 million. And what I just really sat down recently and realized is I spend a lot more time crunching numbers right now. And actually, so our current digital marketing company, Seequs, I just decreased our goal for December of 2019 by $4 million in revenue. And I did that by really asking a lot of other business owners questions about at what point in time does your business start to turn where the revenue doesn't turn into more profit? And at what point in time does it start to turn into more of a personnel kind of like issue or something that you have to really start addressing? And so we actually scaled way back on our revenue goals, but profit is actually higher. I figured that I can make culture much more important. It can be a happier place for people to work. So I really had this big shift in the overall revenue goal for my company. And that's brand new for me.
That's great information. And over the years, I've met with many business owners, much as you have, and talked to folks and done things with Inc. Magazine. And, culture is so important. And sometimes when you're chasing that top line number, at all cost, it can, your profits can decline and your culture, it can really make a huge impact on, what you're trying to do. And those are two things that are really, in my opinion, they're the most important. I mean, you got to make money, otherwise it's a hobby. And then if you don't like what you're doing or your employees don't like what they're doing, well, then what the heck, you know what I mean? It's tough to continue to grow and those kind of things as well. So that is absolutely great information for our ambitious listeners. And so guys, tune in after a brief word from our sponsors. We'll be hearing more from Stephen on how he is growing his current business, Seequs, right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
Home ownership. It's the American dream. It's a goal you've always hoped to achieve. You've spent countless weekends looking for the perfect house on the ideal block. The rates are low and you've saved enough for the down payment. Unfortunately, now the mortgage company says there's a little hitch. Okay, let's be honest. It's a gigantic, gargantuan hitch. It's your credit. And it looks like your estimated house payment will be a lot more.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
As we get back into the show, let's give a shout out to our great sponsors, all3reports.com. That's all, the number 3 reports with an S.com. Many people check their credit every 3 to 5 years when they're financing a home or maybe when they're purchasing a new vehicle. But if there is an issue, it could be too late to do anything about it. So go to all3reports.com to find out more. Speaking of a new vehicle, a wise person once said, lease what depreciates, buy what appreciates. So go to AutoFlex Leasing. They offer a better way to lease your next car. America's largest independent leasing company is AutoFlex Leasing. Doug?
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and today we've got a gentleman that really has a lot of things going on. He has a digital marketing business. He's got a great podcast, and he really is talking to business owners and helping business owners grow their businesses and do things. We talked a little bit in the last segment about culture and profitability, not just top-line revenue. But Stephen, let's talk a little bit about how you monetize your business and talk a little bit about what your current business is and what you got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Seequs Digital Marketing is my primary business and revenue generator. We help local service-based businesses, so everybody from home services, heating, air conditioning, HVAC, electricians, plumbing, to private medical, so dental, chiropractic, plastic surgery, all of that kind of stuff. That's our primary ideal client for our business, and that's really what's allowed us to grow. Actually, you mentioned some stuff about how do you produce the best revenue, how do you generate a great culture, and part of how we did that is getting really specific on who we wanted to work with. And so we're very specific when we pick the niches that we want to work with so that we can correctly market the business and generate revenue, predict growth better, predict revenue better. We really thought a lot about that in our business model, in our growth model. So that's kind of the digital marketing side of things. You mentioned the podcast, Business Revolution. That started earlier this year in 2016 as a project that I kind of said yes to without thinking a whole lot about it, and then started going before I got the chance to say no to it or really have any rational thoughts around it, or the fear started to creep in. But I've really loved it. I mean, the goal of my podcast is simply to help entrepreneurs get information and learn from other experts, learn other people's mistakes so that they can shortcut that learning curve to growth. And it's been awesome.
I'm so thrilled that you're doing the podcast, and the radio show that we're on right now, Ambitious Radio, was kind of born out of the same type of a deal. And I looked at it as a continuing education opportunity to really, talk to people like yourself and, talk about the best practices and things that are going on, and it will apply to any business that I'm involved in. Then we package it up and share it with other people so that they can get a lot of information out of it. So let's kind of rewind just a little bit and go back to, you made a comment about picking specific people that you guys wanted to work with. And can you give a little clarity on what you mean by that, and maybe an example of how you said, hey, we're not going to work with this particular person or this particular company or this type of company, and then and then here is a perfect example of who we are looking for.
Yeah, this was one of the best things that I ever did as a business owner, at least for me. Back in the day, I used to take on everybody. Everybody was our ideal client. If you owned a business and you wanted to get more leads in the door, perfect, we would work with you. And I always fought this whole niching thing, and I talked to a couple mentors and some coaches, and they kept pushing on it. And then it just started showing up everywhere. All of the experts, all of the people that are really successful in creating the life they want, getting fulfillment, and creating a lot of revenue, they were all niched. And so I was like, all right, maybe I should actually pay attention to this thing. And so we started niching down, and what happened was, we got to work with people that we loved, and I'll elaborate on that in just a second, but we got to work with people that we really loved, and we actually could make a much greater impact on their business because we understood it so much more. So when we started working with a specific niche of business, we could get way better at it, and then now we could help all of our clients a lot more, which led to more revenue for us. And then a really cool thing happened from the marketing side. We didn't really have to market that much anymore because we were known as an expert in these very specific circles because we did such a good job. So now, instead of always having to market to everyone, which, as we know, is extremely expensive, time consuming, kind of a pain in the butt, now we had people actually coming to us saying, hey, we've seen that you're the expert here, or we talked to somebody in the industry and they said that you're the expert. And so this whole idea of niching has been fantastic since we started doing it. And kind of to go along with that, the ideal client, we're very specific about the type of business owner we want to work with. So it's kind of funny, and I probably can't say it on the air, but we won't work with anybody that is a blank. And we want to work with people that are just really nice, good people. We want to work with business owners that refuse to settle for the ordinary. We want to work with people that are driven to grow and driven to add value to their industry. And we have this kind of bullet pointed list of people that we will and will not work with. And that's been huge for us too. So now we've dramatically shrunken the pool that we can take potential clients from, but instead of having the effect that I thought it would originally, which would be much harder to get clients, it's had the very opposite effect. And it's been really, really great for our company.
I think a lot of business owners, they go through that struggle because especially when you're starting up, or, it's not as profitable as you'd like for it to be. You feel like that you don't have the luxury of turning anybody down. It's like, hey, I'll take whatever comes my way, and I'll just have to work harder because I got to have everything that I can get my hands on right now. And then as you become a little more profitable, you start being a little bit more selective. Now, is that kind of how your transition occurred, or was it more of just, a situation where you just kind of knew, hey, I'm going to do it regardless of whether or not it's profitable or not? I only want to work with the people I want to work with.
No, it's more of the latter. So we started out saying, oh my gosh, I'll take anybody. Just give me revenue through the door. And if I can help you, I'll take you on. But what I did in this company was I more quickly shifted to the niche. So after, the first 6 months in business, we started getting rid of people or telling people no. So it's always this fine line of uncomfort versus revenue. And we're always trying to constantly more define that. So even now, we're continuing to more define who our niche is with that little bit of uncomfort right on the revenue side. Like, now we have clients saying, oh, I'll pay you, $5,000 a month to do this, but they're not quite our right industry, or we're not quite the best at it, and we'll turn those down. And so I think it's just constantly chasing that fine line.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes great sense. And so let's talk about some of the fears. I mean, obviously we talk about this, being an entrepreneur and some of those things. And again, not that you have to be fearless, because if you have no fear, you can definitely get hurt on stuff. But you checked out of corporate world, went down to to the Caribbean for a while. That's a situation where you just jumped in and did it. But now when you came back into the world of call it the real world, not the Caribbean world, what fears did you have about getting in business there, and how did you transition through those?
Yeah, I mean, I had tons of fears. How am I going to eat? How am I going to pay myself? How am I going to pay my team? How am I going to pay my rent? Those fears were, as you said, they're very real. And what I realized is, one, at that point, I was like, all right, I'm just going to do whatever it takes. So if I have to work 90 or 100 hours a week, weeks at a time, fine, I will. I had made the commitment to myself that I would figure it out. And that got rid of, or at least covered up, some of those fears, so that I was able to stay focused and start generating some revenue and actually growing a business. And I think those fears are always here. But one of the things that happened to me when the mortgage industry failed was, I was at the complete bottom, $100,000 in debt, had to keep my car in the garage because I wasn't making payments, so it wouldn't get repoed, had to ride my bike occasionally, couldn't pay my rent. I really kind of hit the bottom, and I realized it's not that terrible. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to go back there again, but I still found ways to get food. I still have really great memories of spending time with my friends. I learned a ton. I mean, when you can't pay for cable, you read a lot of books. So I learned that it really wasn't that bad. Like, a lot of the fears didn't actually come true. And so now I know that I can climb back out of that at any time. So it allows me to take those chances a little bit more consistently, but still through the lens of intelligence.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you one last question as we wrap up this segment. If you could go back and kind of tell yourself one thing at any point in your past, what would it be, and at what time in your life was that?
Oh, man. It would be the thing that we talked about at the first part of the segment. Niche earlier. Be very specific about who your ideal client is. And I mean, if I would have known that 10 years ago, my business life would be completely different.
That is great information for our ambitious listeners. And guys, right after a break, when we hear from our sponsors, we'll be getting right back with Stephen right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Could you lose your career because of your faith? Could your pastor be sued because of his sermons? Can students and teachers be punished because of what they believe about God or what they say? Can the government or even your employer force you to violate your beliefs? Get the answers, and if necessary, legal protection from First Liberty Institute. This is Kelly Shackelford, president of First Liberty. We're the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to restoring religious freedom in America. In fact, First Liberty's nationwide network of top attorneys win over 90% of their cases. We've won at the Supreme Court all the way down to the local schools. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org and get your free In God We Trust window clean. That's firstliberty.org.
again here on the show. It's Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, are you thinking of expanding your business but don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a new phone system? Consider Grasshopper.com. You get to keep your existing number, you have multiple extensions, voicemails transcribed, and no new hardware. Grasshopper.com is the entrepreneur's phone system. Let's get back to the show with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and guys, this has been a great interview so far. I've learned a ton of information from Stephen, and we've got Stephen Christopher here with Seequs, and he is telling us about, he's a successful entrepreneur. He's an expert in his industry. He's digital marketing. He's got a podcast. He's talking to all kinds of other successful people, and really, we hit on the last segment about, getting into your niche and doing that sooner. So it really makes a lot of sense to work with people you want to work with. You can do a better job for them. You enjoy it more. You make more money, profitability-wise, not necessarily revenue. So there's lots of great information. But let's jump into, just real quick, a little bit about how you determine what to do next. Because I know you're a busy guy. And, you've got the podcast, you've got the business of doing business, and then you're just trying to grow. So what is it that you do to grow personally? And how is it that you decide, to stay focused on things, or how to transition or pivot to other things?
Awesome. There's a lot of great questions in there that could go a lot of different directions, for at least from what I've learned. But, from a personal development and a growth standpoint, mentors, surrounding yourself with a great circle of influence. I mean, I'm constantly looking to bring new people into my life that are doing what it is that I want to do. So maybe not, actually most times not the same business exactly, but, people that are living a life by design. One of my really good friends and mentors, Daryl Hicks, I mean, he says this all the time. Like, I'll see him on Facebook doing something cool, and he's like, life by design. He runs this really large company in Canada with great staff, but he's created his business to support the life that he wants for him and his family. So, just always looking at these people and trying to learn from them and trying to put new people into my circle of influence, see what they're doing to get to where they are now, which is kind of what I'm trying to do, and then doing some of those things that they're doing, studying the same people, reading the same books, going to the same programs. Circle of influence is a huge way to grow.
No question about it, and it's not to go all biblical on you or anything, but in Proverbs, it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It talks in Proverbs 13:20, he who walks with the wise will become wise, which is exactly what you're talking about. But then the next part of it is he who walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. And it didn't say they'll be foolish; it says they'll be harmed. So you got to be protective both ways of getting the right people in your circle of influence to get you where you want to go, and then also either kicking people out of your circle of influence or just preventing them from ever getting in and causing you harm. So that's great information. Now, do you have any particular people that you're following or anybody that's mentoring to you right now?
Yeah, I mean, a couple that kind of come to mind. One, I mentioned Daryl Hicks, Dan Martell, Cameron Herold. Cameron Herold was the COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK that grew it from 2 million to, I think, 160 million. Great book called Double Double and Meetings Suck are two of his most recent books that I like. I love Tony Robbins, and I'm not sure, are you familiar with Hal Elrod? He wrote a book called The Miracle Morning.
Okay, yeah.
Love. So yeah, I mean, those are just a couple of people in my life that are mentors, friends, and people that I'm following to really accomplish what they have.
Now, you said the Got Junk. Now, the guy from that. Now, is that someone that you're following? Is that someone that you personally know? Tell us about that relationship.
Yeah, so Cameron Herold. So it's somebody that I started following a couple of years ago, and then through slowly just always increasing my circle of influence and getting around more of the people that are doing what I want, I've actually started created a relationship with him. So, I have access to him now. I can ask him questions personally through like Facebook Messenger, and he'll actually respond to me. I attend a couple of the same events that he does. So it's cool to see that a few years ago I started following him, and now only a few years later, I have access to him. I mean, he knows who I am. He would return my phone call if I called him. It's really cool to see how that is. And, I think it's because I constantly drove myself to become more personally. And then now I have more potential to add value to these people. So now they're more open to having a relationship with me.
Absolutely, and I think that makes a huge difference. And the reality is, a lot of successful people out there, they like to help others. I mean, most people are not quote unquote self-made, and the ones that say they are, they got somebody helping them for the most part. And so, when you reach out to people and you can provide value, or just ask them, hey, how is it that you've become successful? Try to reach out to them. They may or may not be able to spend a ton of time with you, but I've found over the years, as you have, Stephen, that if you just reach out to people, most of the time they'll connect with you on some level. And if you can serve them in any way or bring value to them in any way, a lot of times you can develop a relationship. And it was kind of, I don't want to use the word cute because that doesn't sound right, but it was just kind of neat, if you will, that you reach out to somebody and you're like, hey, he'll respond back to me on Facebook or answer my call. But the cool thing is you have access to people, whether it's a deep personal relationship where you're going out to eat dinner with them, or they're like your family or anything. But you can still correspond with them, and you can get questions answered. And in this day and age, I mean, hey, to get a response back and to be able to ask them questions, that's quite valuable. Even if it's not the traditional relationship that you hear about from a mentor-mentee standpoint, where you're spending an hour with them a week or whatever. That's really, really cool stuff that you've been able to do. So that's exciting. Now, so let's talk about maybe what's next for you, as we got a few minutes left in this segment, but how do you make that transition to determine what's next for you?
Yeah. So what I do is I have actually, this is perfect. So in Cameron Herold's book, Double Double, it basically tells you or gives you a strategy to double your business in 3 years. So we always have this 3-year vision for the company, which also includes a 3-year vision for myself personally. So right now, our 3-year vision, we have a certain revenue that we want to hit. I have a size of the company. We know how many employees we want to have. We know how many accounts we want to have, where we want those people to be paying. And then I know what I want to be doing personally. And so that really gives us a clear kind of game plan to follow. So now every day when everybody comes into the office, or even when I'm home on the weekend, I know what I'm moving towards because it's already somewhat predefined. And so I think having that game plan, or as Cameron calls it, a painted picture or a vivid vision, is really helpful, so that when you get up in the morning, you kind of know what direction you're going. So, I mean, for us, we want to be the best digital marketing company within the home services industry over the course of the next 3 years. I mean, we just want to blow everybody else out of the water because we add so much more value to our clients that we're just the undisputed company that you go to if that's the type of business that you're in, and and you're looking for a digital marketing company. And when we get everybody on board with that vision within the company, now I have a team of 15 people behind me moving in that same direction, whereas like some of our competition, maybe the owner says that, but half of the people working there have no idea why they're coming to work or what the company goal is and what they're moving towards.
That is really just great. I love that vivid vision. And, without vision, people will perish. There's a lot of different things, proverbs and other things that are to that effect. And, you've got to have a little short-term vision, a little long-term vision. And if you don't have a plan for where you want to go, you very well may wind up somewhere else. So that is, great information and ambitious times right here on the Ambitious Radio Network. After we hear from our sponsors one more time, we'll get right back with Stephen Christopher, and we'll find out what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribe an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office.
And we're back in here on the show. It's Ambitious Radio Network, recharging the ambitious mind, body, and spirit, made possible by repairmycreditnow.com. You know, having bad credit can be really draining. It's okay to not be okay as long as you're on the road to being okay. Let repairmycreditnow.com help get you back on track. You know, many of our ambitious listeners prefer to listen to books as opposed to reading them. Now, with that, we've teamed up with audible.com to offer you one free audiobook. Just go to ambitiousradio.com, click on the Audible banner on the page to find out more. Back to the show now with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and today we're talking to Stephen Christopher. This gentleman's doing it all, but right now we're going to talk about what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit, because when you're hard charged and when you're doing all the things that entrepreneurs do, it tends to kind of drain you a little bit sometimes because you're pushing real hard. I think he mentioned a little earlier in the segment he was going to do whatever it takes, even if that's 80, 90, or 100 hours a week for a sustained period of time. So some of you guys, your head might have blown a little bit like, whoa, what in the heck? But you know what? That's what entrepreneurs do. They do whatever it takes to make it happen. So Stephen, let's talk about that a little bit, man. What do you do that really fills you, that kind of gets you back on track?
Yeah, I do a couple things. I mean, from a relaxation standpoint, and enjoying kind of the fruits of what I've created, give me a beach or a body of water and some sunshine, and I'm pretty much good. You know, that's kind of where me and my fiance, we vacation in Mexico. We go to the beach. I go down to the Florida Keys. I have some friends down there. Just anything to sit by a body of water. There's this whole power behind water, at least for me, and that's how I relax and kind of recharge from that standpoint. But one of the things you said is, you know, what kind of fills me? And a lot of the stuff in my life ties back to business and helping other people and adding value. And one of my favorite things that kind of fills me is helping my team, my staff, my employees, and other people around me create things that they never thought possible. So, you know, like my employees, I want them to have a job that is something that they never thought they would have been able to have as a job. And then creating that and seeing the results from it and seeing how happy they are and seeing how it helps them accomplish their big goals and, you know, make a better life for them and for their family. That's the top of my list. That's probably number 1.5 to maybe number 1 sometimes.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned, you know, anywhere with water and beaches, and I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he said, you know, it's almost like a spiritual thing for him. You know, he gets to a beach, and it don't matter when he lands somewhere. It could be, you know, midnight, and he can go sit by the beach, and it's just like this ultimate relaxation. But do you have a specific beach or a specific place in the world that's like, this is your favorite?
I don't. I love the ones that I'm familiar with, because I don't know, I'm familiar with them. They're great. I love them, but it's the coolest thing in the world to get off of a new plane or a new destination and see a new beach or a new body of water. So, yeah, like anything for me that is water related is good, because I'm right there with your friend or the other person you were talking to. I mean, you know, there's something magical and spiritual. I mean, it's water. It's like the most powerful thing on this planet. And it's, I don't know, there's something very recharging about it.
Cool. No, that's good. That's real good. So let's switch gears for just a second on the other side. Is there anything specific that just kind of drains you, that's like you see this scenario and you're like, oh, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, as far as draining goes, it would be too much of the same thing. So if I don't get some variety, for example, like if we're making a big sales push and, you know, really trying to get a bunch of new clients in the door, really trying to get through a growth phase, I get burnt out on that really quick. So doing the same thing over and over really is not fun for me. So I have to be really cautious to make sure that I schedule thing in bursts. The working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. I can do that for a couple weeks, but I've got to have a plan to say, okay, I'm only going to do this for 3 weeks. Otherwise, yeah, I'm drained, and it doesn't make for the happiest version of myself, which, doesn't make for the best version of myself for my family and my friends.
That's great, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because that kind of transitions into one of my questions, was that work-life balance, and you answered the question. I mean, the reality is, you can hit it hard for a little while, but you have to have a plan to decompress and to unwind a little bit and get back to kind of some kind of normalcy. And so if you've got something that's draining you, there's stuff happens, life happens. It is what it is. But getting back on track. Now, I saw somewhere that you like to meditate and do some things along those lines. Now, is that like a scheduled type meditation every morning when you get up, or kind of what does an average day look like for you?
Yeah, so I start my morning with the book we referenced earlier in the show. Hal Elrod wrote a book called The Miracle Morning, and it's basically just all the things that we kind of know we should be doing as entrepreneurs and people that want to grow in the morning. And part of that is meditation or silence. So every morning when I get up, I go through this little routine, some affirmations, some visualization, some journaling, some reading, and some meditation. And it kind of just resets me and gets me ready for the day. So anything that's happened in the past is the past. We can't affect it. But before I started doing this, I would carry things from days and weeks and months in the past into my day, and that didn't allow me to actually move towards my goals as fast as I was capable of. So the meditation is just kind of like a reset button, just like on your phone or your computer. If you don't restart it every once in a while, it gets bogged down, it slows down. So that's what that meditation does for me. And then it also allows me during the day, if I get stressed or if I get kind of caught up in something, I can sit back, take a couple very deep, slow, like methodical breaths, and boom, like instantly I'm reset back to that morning quiet calm. And then I can focus on, okay, now I just need to do this. And all the other stuff kind of falls away. So meditation has been huge for me. It's good to know, and starting your day off right and a recharge. I mean, you talked about getting up. Now, what about your night's rest? Do you have a certain time at night you try to go to bed? Do you have a rhythm of sleep? How much sleep you typically get, or what does that look like? Yeah, I don't do as well as I should with that, with my sleep routine. I travel a lot. I do different events, so hotels, later nights, there's all kinds of stuff that throws off my sleep routine, as I would want it to be in a perfect world. But I generally get around 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. It used to be less, but recently I found that I just need a little more sleep now. So I listened to that and just started sleeping a little bit more. Most of the time in bed by like 9:30, 10. And I get up anywhere from 3:30 to 4:30 in the morning when it's nice and quiet and calm. And that's when I get a lot of my great work done. But sleep is, I have to have sleep, even more so now as I get a little bit older.
That happens. We're not as young as we once were, and I heard something the other day that Father Time has a batting average of 1,000. Right, he catches all of us, and so the reality is we got to listen to our bodies and do those kind of things, because that's another thing. With our health and everything else, as hard charging entrepreneurs. I mean, there's advantages of being an employee that you clock in at 9 in the morning, you clock out at 6 in the evening. Take an hour lunch, and when you clock out for the evening, you don't have a worry in the world other than what am I going to do for the next 15 hours until I got to go back to work the next day. Entrepreneurs, it's not that way. So you really got to keep yourself mentally healthy and also just physically healthy, doing the things you need to be doing. And so that's great that you shared that. So you get good rest, get up, you recharge, you find a way to go through and meditate, start your day off the right way, clear things out so you're fresh. And I think you said that's when you get some of your best work done is early in the morning. So, man, we're wrapping up the show. Can you tell us a little bit about connecting with you? If someone wanted to connect with you, they wanted to potentially use your company for some services or whatever the case is, are you social? Do you tweet? Are you on Facebook? Those kinds of things?
Yeah, so I mean, the website for our digital marketing company is Seequs.com, Seequs.com. You can fill out a form on the website, and that'll get to me if you have questions specifically for me, or somebody on my team can help answer your questions. We got a great group of people within the company. If you just want to connect and kind of talk entrepreneurship and have questions about business or any of that kind of stuff through the podcast, Business Revolution, the website is bizrevolution.com. And if you go to bizrevolution.com/Facebook, that'll put you right into our Facebook group, our community. And that thing is really, really active. That's where I answer a ton of questions. I love connecting with people in there. And there's a lot of engagement by people that are way smarter than me about a lot of topics.
That is great information. So I just want to thank you for coming on. I've learned a bunch. There's tons of golden nuggets, and we'll get it all packaged up and put on the show notes page of Ambitious Radio. But with that being said, I just want to say thanks from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for carving out an hour of your time to spend with us.
Yeah, Doug, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. This is one of my favorite things to do. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for all the listeners for taking time out of their day. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, tune in Wednesday to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs changing the faces of their organizations. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.